And we are back from break. This is Bowles.tv, BOLES.tv, and we are live with you today from the East Coast of the United States. Tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. East Coast time, Jana Marie will be here with some ASL chat. Not a formal lesson like we have on Fridays with her, but an informal chat. Stop by, learn something new, chat with her in chat here, text if you like. Had an interesting conversation about MLMs, and now we're going into the next idea, which is this ongoing sense of censorship that we have going on in the United States. It's very strange. Always want to get rid of things that we don't like. Criticize things for being inappropriate so you can remove ideas and thoughts that you don't really want to hear, you don't want to know about. And book bannings and book burnings are kind of the new stew that is really an affection of the hard right in America, which is a dismaying and confusing thing. In 2011, which is longer ago than you would think, I wrote this article, Taking the Nigger Out of Gym. Now, some people were very offended by that title. How dare you use the N-word in your blog? Who do you think you are? And all these accusations came from white people. Not black people. Black people didn't seem to be too concerned about it because they understand the historical context and the meaning of the word, and if you read the article, you understand what I'm talking about. New South Books, in 2011, a publisher based in Alabama, Deep South, United States, is reprinting Mark Twain's book, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. However, they're not printing it out the way that Mark Twain wrote it. They're printing it out the way that they want it to be read. And they are taking out the words nigger and Injun. And there's a major character in Huck Finn called Nigger Jim. That's the history of it. That's the way Mark Twain wrote it. In the context of time, of that time in which the book was written, he was reflecting the way that people were addressed and labeled. And people try all the time to take their current morality and go back in time and apply it out of context to the reality of the historical context. And they think they're doing it just to be smart and woke and to whitewash what really happened in the past. And this is the same thing we're seeing with critical race theory. You're seeing people going back and saying, we don't want to hear about bad things that happened to black people that white people did to them. You are making our white children feel uncomfortable in class with their black classmates because of what happened. It's what happened. It's the history. Mark Twain wrote a character called Nigger Jim, and he called Indians Indians. Throughout the book, 219 times in all, the word nigger is replaced by slave in that new edition from Alabama. A professor of English at Auburn University approached the publisher with that idea of changing. And Mr. Gibbons said Tuesday he had been teaching Mark Twain for decades and always hesitated before reading aloud the common racial epithet, which is used liberally in the book for a reason and for a purpose. It is a reflection of social attitudes in the mid-19th century. That is what Mark Twain is trying to tell us from the past today. I found myself right out of graduate school at Berkeley not wanting to pronounce that word when I was teaching Huck Finn or Tom Sawyer, and I don't think I'm alone. And you talk about liberals being snowflakes and delicate and can't take it? So I said, when you remove the nigger from Nigger Jim, and when you replace Injun with Indian, I wonder why the politically correct publisher didn't use Native American instead of Indian. To really round out the boulderization of a national classic novel, you are changing the absolute intention and the morality of the original source material. So I still get people today that say you can't use the N-word, you can't say it because you're not black. Only black people can call each other the N-word. You don't have any right to use it. Well, what do you say to Mark Twain? He was making a very distinctive intention of calling his character Nigger Jim for a reason. You're going to tell Mark Twain he can't use that? Oh, it's okay in his time. Okay, well, if it's okay in his time, then it's okay in his time now, because his time didn't change. Only the publisher changed. Only the censorship changed. So that was me in 2011. I haven't changed my attitude at all. And here we are now today, December 7, 2021. Here we are in America. And this is what we're getting. In San Antonio, there's a request to remove 400 books from shelves at the request of a far-right lawmaker. Have things changed? Some white guy decides, I don't want those books about race and inequality. Thank you for following. I've decided I don't want those books on the shelves. I'm not a librarian, but I think I have some power. And I'm a white man in Texas. And so what I say goes. I guess we'll see what goes. The San Antonio's Northeast Independent School District has yanked more than 400 books from its shelves for review after a far-right Texas lawmaker demanded a probe of objectionable books in school libraries. Oh, it just makes you sigh. A demand by Texas Rep. Matt Krause, Republican of Fort Worth. He wants districts to reveal whether they own copies of some 850 books related to race and gender issues or sexuality that he himself identified on a list. In an October letter, the lawmaker said he's investigating the existing of school reading material that might make students feel discomfort, guilt, or anguish. Well, I think that's part of learning. I think that's part of it, hearing things you don't want to know about. And what's so interesting about this effort to censor books is they want to pretend that these things didn't happen and that their children don't need to know about it. Their children don't need to know the history of things that happened because it might upset them. Well, I would say if you're a good parent, it's your responsibility to sit your kid down and have a conversation so they can understand what happened. This happened back then. We don't believe that anymore. We have grown as a community of minds. We have grown as people that we don't think that way anymore. But back then they did. How is that a bad thing? This guy, Krause, who's running for a Tarrant County District Attorney, offered no explanation for how he compiled this list of books, which are largely written by women and people of color and LGBTQ plus writers. Among the titles in his 16-page spreadsheet of books he wants banned are the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel The Confessions of Nat Turner by Bill Styron and Follow Your Arrow by Jessica Verdi, a young adult book dealing with sexual orientation. Now, people say that books, they're books. Get rid of them. Other people say books are very valuable. Books have power. The power of the word is as pointed as a sword. Well, it's not just Texas that's going crazy. Virginia's also going crazy. Virginia school board members call for books to be burned. Not just banned. We can't ban them. Don't just add them to a database. Let's set them on fire instead. Let's really teach those people who want to read these books. Let's teach them a lesson. 2 Virginia school board members called for burning books that have been deemed worthy of removal from being read. Now, so when you ban a book, when you say, oh, you can't touch that, it's too hot, that invites kids, especially, to say, oh, you don't want me to see that, so maybe I'll go look at it anyway. Sort of the Streisand effect, I think. The Spotsylvania County School Board directed staff to begin removing sexually explicit books from library shelves. The GOP pushing against teaching students about race and sexuality. This all came about as the school board directed staff to begin removing sexually explicit books from library shelves after voting 6-0 in favor of the removal. The board has plans to review how certain books or materials are defined as objectionable, which opens the door for other content to be removed as well. And isn't that true? Well, we took out these 10 books, and they're disgusting. Why can't we take out these other books too? They're just as disgusting. And there's kind of a well-known thing in the book publishing industry, the textbook publishing industry, that if you're writing a history book, and if you're saying bad things about the South, and how they were in favor of slavery and went to a civil war, and you tell the facts of what happened, Texas School Board will say, we're not approving your book. Then we usually buy 3 million books, let's say, from you every year. But if you're going to put in that about the Civil War, we're not going to buy your book. We're going to buy a book that just skips over that part, and we're going to make them rich. So that's where the pressure for the censorship comes from. It comes from people who have power and who have money and who say, I don't like that history. I want my own history. Whitewash it for me. And unfortunately, a lot of these major publishers concede. So Texas is setting the agenda for what school children all over the country are reading in their history books. Here you go. You need to see and hear the Virginia elected officials set forth their plan to burn books that they don't like. One of which the American Library Association named Best Book for Young Adults. This nation's march toward fascism is turning into a full sprint.
I think those books, I don't want to even see them. Like, I think they should be thrown in a fire.
I'm sure we've got hundreds of people out there that would like to see those books before we burn them. But just so we can identify within our community that we are eradicating this bad stuff.
I think those books, I don't want to even see them. Like, I think they should be thrown in a fire.
I'm sure we've got hundreds of people out there that would like to see those books before we burn them. But just so we can identify within our community that we are eradicating this bad stuff.
I think those books.
Now, as a writer, I have to say I like that a lot, in that these people think books are dangerous, that books influence people, that books can change minds, that reading something can dissuade someone from an indoctrination. It's very interesting, and it makes me proud to be an author. But you do have to deal with this. Banned and challenged books. It's a whole website dedicated to the effort to try to ban books. We don't want you to think that way. We want you to think the other way. We don't want you to live outside the scope of your mind and your immediate environment. New ideas are too dangerous, and they come from afar, And we cannot control you going to the library, so we are going to remove any temptation for you to try to go to the library to learn something on your own. We're just going to shut you down, and you're not going to even know what's out there. The American Library Association condemns censorship and works to ensure the free access to information. Every year, the Office for Intellectual Freedom compiles a list of the top 10 most challenged books in order to inform the public about censorship in libraries and schools. These lists are based on information from media stories and voluntary reports sent to the OIF from communities across the U.S. The top 10 lists are only a snapshot of these book challenges. Surveys indicate that 82 to 97% of book challenges, documented requests to remove materials from schools remain unreported and receive no media coverage, which is the whole intended purpose of their purpose of what they're trying to do. They don't want you to know what's out there. And here are the books. Number 1, George by Alex Gino. Reason why challenged, banned, restricted. Because of LGBTQIA plus content. Conflicting with a religious point of view and not reflecting the values of our community. Now that's interesting. A community has traditionally been bound by physical things. County lines, school districts, sometimes just one block. Sometimes a street is an identity in a community. But we don't live that way anymore. We don't live in restricted areas. Because this internet thing has given us access to other minds all over the world. So I want to know, what is the values of our community? A community of what? A community of schoolgoers? A community of church people? A community of liberals or GOP people? What is the definition of a community? Well, it's always changing. And there are people very scared of having the pool of thought and understanding expand beyond their own control. And as I try to tell people that I know and love and teach and work with, you don't have to be where you're from. And that is what this effort is trying to do. Oh, no, that's a foreign idea. We don't believe that here. You can get out, have your own life, and go someplace else. And maybe you won't change your mind. You'll just be that person you were born into that community. And you were indoctrinated into a religion and a way of thinking. And you don't want to question anything, and you're happy to be there. Fine. It's your decision, as long as it's your decision and not someone else. The second most challenged book, Stamped. Racism and Anti-Racism. Why was it banned? Banned and challenged because of the author's public statements and because of claims that the book contains selective storytelling incidents and does not encompass racism against all people. Now, isn't that interesting? You know what that means. They're trying to flip this whole thing. Black people and people of color get treated differently than white people in America. But the white people now are saying, oh no, I'm discriminated against too because of my color. Look at this critical race theory. They're blaming me for my skin color. And what's really important to realize is this has all kind of recently been started because of Black Lives Matter. And the white response, some people who are white respond with, no, all lives matter. And black people are saying, that's not the point of it. And white people who support black people say, that's not the point of it. Black lives matter. No, 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 no. The other side tries to argue. All lives matter. All racism is bad, even racism against the white people. And here's how you respond to people who think that way. Let's don't say Black Lives Matter. Let's change it to, because it's the same thought, let's change it to My Mother Matters. Okay? And the other side's going to say, no, 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 no. All mothers matter. Not just your mother. And the person who's saying that my mother matters, that person's saying, yes, but my mother just died. And I miss her. And I am in turmoil and I am in pain. And I would like to say that my mother matters to me. Black Lives Matter. Same thing. George Floyd. Person dies. Very specific. My mother matters. And someone comes out to you and says, no, it's not your mother. It's all mothers. But I'm talking about my mother. I would like some sympathy from you as another human being to give me some credit that my mother matters to me. Not your mother. It's all mothers. And for you to single out your mother for special attention because she happens to be your mother, well, that's not right. Because all mothers matter. That's one of the best ways I think you can respond to those who criticize the saying Black Lives Matter. Because if you try to understand what that phrase means in the context of a very specific reality, you responding with all lives matter is just absolutely ridiculous. Because that's not the point of it. So we have these censorships, the book burning, you can't sell a textbook in Texas unless you take out all your stuff about the Civil War. Don't make my white child uncomfortable in class because of what happened in the past. None of this is new. This has been going on for a long time. This sort of state censorship. This sort of, you better get in line. You'd better form a column with us or you're going to be in trouble. We're going to leave you out and you're not going to like it. 1933, Germany, right? This is the rise of Hitler. This is not yet World War II. This is 1933. May 10, 1933. University students in 34 university towns across Germany burned 25,000 books. The works of Jewish authors, like Albert Einstein or Sigmund Freud, went up in flames, alongside blacklisted American authors such as Ernest Hemingway, deaf and blind Helen Keller, while students gave the Nazi salute during the burning.
I don't want to even see them. Like, I think they should be thrown in a fire.
I'm sure we've got hundreds of people out there that would like to see those books before we burn them. But just so we can identify within our community that we are eradicating this bad stuff.
In Berlin, 40,000 people gathered to hear German Minister of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda, Joseph Goebbels, give a speech in Berlin's Opera Square. He declared that the era of extreme Jewish intellectualism is now at an end. The future German man will not just be a man of books, but a man of character.
I think those books, I don't want to even see them. Like, I think they should be thrown in a fire.
I'm sure we've got hundreds of people out there that would like to see those books before we burn them. But just so we can identify within our community that we are eradicating this bad stuff.
Virginia, America, 2021. Joseph Goebbels, 1933, Germany. It is to this end that we want to educate you, and thus you'll do well in this midnight hour to commit to the flames the evil spirit of the past. Radio stations broadcast the Berlin speeches, songs, and ceremonial incantations to countless German listeners. Widespread newspaper coverage called the action against the un-German spirit a success. The Nazi war on un-German individual expression had begun.
I think those books, I don't want to even see them. Like, I think they should be thrown in a fire.
I'm sure we've got hundreds of people out there that would like to see those books before we burn them. But just so we can identify within our community that we are eradicating this bad stuff.
And that's why they don't want these books to be available. They don't want us to know what happened before. So how do they do that? They try to erase what happened. Burn a book. Ban a book. You can't read that. I'll give you something else you can read that is the history that I want you to know, but not the history that you need to know. After the bonfires, the book burnings in 1933, 100,000 people marched in New York City to protest Nazi policies. Similar demonstrations occurred in Philadelphia, Chicago, and St. Louis, while German newspapers triumphantly reported that Germany was purging itself of Jews and others considered politically or artistically suspect. The American media responded with shock. Newsweek called it a holocaust of books. Times, a bibliocaust. And here's the really important part. Yet, the indignation was more rhetoric than true outrage. New York Herald Tribune columnist Walter Lippmann was one of the few journalists reporting on the Nazis who took the book burnings as an ominous sign of the Nazis' ultimate goal. These acts symbolize the moral and intellectual character of the Nazi regime. For these bonfires are not the work of schoolboys or mobs, but the present German government.
I think those books, I don't want to even see them. Like, I think they should be thrown in a fire.
I'm sure we've got hundreds of people out there that would like to see those books before we burn them. But just so we can identify within our community that we are eradicating this bad stuff.
The ominous symbolism of this act and these bonfires is that there is a government in Germany which means to teach its people that their salvation lies in violence. And that's where we are in America today. December 9, 2021. 2 days after Pearl Harbor. We don't have people fighting for freedom or for information. We have people fighting to shut us up We have people fighting to tamp down new ideas and to devalue expression and thoughtfulness and caring because it doesn't fit into their worldview, into their community standards. And the question is, where is that community coming from and who wants to be a part of it? And there are some hardcore people on each side who want their own community. They want to live in their own silo, and they don't want to be bothered by the likes of you or me. And that's fine, as long as they keep those terrible values to themselves. Don't push their ideas on other people. Well, they're pushing their ideas on us by writing these books. Well, you don't have to read the book. You don't have to burn the book. You don't have to ban the book. Just let the book be. The power of the book comes from people who want to read the book, not from the people who don't want to read the book and who will not read the book. And if a book becomes popular or interesting or important to a new community of people, how can you stop that? I understand you want to try to stop it, but is it really possible to stop it? Especially today. I mean, 1933, if you burned a book, it was kind of hard to find another book. Go to the library. Oh, we took everything out of the library. Oh, go to the bookstore. No, the bookstore, we banned the bookstore too. Well, I could have one shipped over from the UK. No, you can't. Ships aren't running. But today, you ban a book, burn a book. How are you going to burn the internet? How are you going to burn 1,000 digital copies of a book? All you do by banning a book and burning a book and talking about this is make the book more popular and more important and more salvageable in the day and the age in which we find ourselves stuck and trying to live. So a lot of this is production. A lot of this is just showing off, giving a little quote so people will play you endlessly in their live stream. If that's the kind of attention you seek, the kind of attention you need to be heard, telling people to burn books. But we try to live free. We try to have a good understanding of where we are in the world together. And these are the emotions and the thoughts that we try to explore every day at 9 a.m., Monday through Friday, here with you on Bowls.tv. If you have any thoughts about this conversation we've had today about a variety of topics, please don't hesitate to get in touch. You can email me now at david@bowls.tv. You can join us here in live chat. You can find me on the Twitter at David Bowles. Facebook is just Bowles, Bowles. Instagram is Bowles Books.